you're never too old to follow a dream. So whatever it is out there, if you got a dream, just hang on to it. There will come a time when you can do it.
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
This is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. Today's guest, Dr. Lynn, a naturopath and yoga therapist. She's the author of many books about health, nutrition, yoga, karma, sexuality, and more. Her accomplishments truly are too many to name here, so you can find out more about Dr. Lynn on her website, Doctorlynn.com. I'll have links to the website and YouTube channel and other social media in the description below the video or on whatever platform you're watching this on or listening to this on. Dr. Lynn, thank you for joining me today. I understand that you've lived in a few places off of Maine, California. You're in Sarasota now, is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I'm here in Sarasota. I've been here since the pandemic.
Okay. I have a lot of family on the other coast. I'm on the east coast of Florida.
Oh, okay. Where are you on the East Coast?
Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay. Okay. We're neighbors.
And we have nice, bright, sunny days. You can go out sunbathing where the rest of the country is probably dealing with snow still.
Yes, where I come from up in Maine, it's still pretty cold up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and from what I understand, you were originally on one of the little islands off of Maine.
Yes, that is correct. I grew up on an island off the coast of Maine. It was a little fishing village. And it's part of the town is called Harpswell. It's a peninsula, and it owns 3 islands. And I grew up on one of those islands.
Now, what was different for you being on a little island versus on the mainland?
Well, we had to take a boat to go everywhere. And we had a small causeway. So they built a causeway between the island and the next town. So there was just a small causeway. But really, if you wanted to go anywhere, it was, off the island, it was easier just to jump in a boat and shoot across to Portland, which was the biggest city. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about as far as, grocery stores, and what did you have there?
We had 2 little general stores, and, they were kind of limited because the general stores were also stores that had all the stuff for the fishermen. So they had rope and all the stuff. It was really there to support the fishermen, but there was, bread and milk and the basics that were there. So what my mother would do is she would load us up in the car, and we would probably go once a month to town and get provisions. Other than that, it was what we got. We had fresh fish every day. It was whatever we got from the island. So I like to tell people that before organic was even a word we used, I was eating organic because that's all we had.
I think that's fantastic. Now, a lot of my audience will have a very specific diet. And when I want to talk about food with you, especially with your upbringing being different and, not having the grocery store down the street where you can go, twice a week if you wanted to and always have fresh food or whatever it is. Because it's almost sounding like a little Weston A. Price, you kind of eat what's there. And
That's very true. And every house had what was called a root cellar. And a root cellar was underneath the house, and it was cold down there. So that's where they would put the provisions. So things that we would get, my mother would can things, we would freeze things like fruits and vegetables. And that's what we ate through the winter because, you couldn't grow anything in the winter.
that's fantastic. It's crazy, but it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
For me, we've always had the grocery store right there, and you could get whatever you wanted from the aisles or from the perimeters. And, we kind of grew up eating somewhat healthy food, but a lot of processed stuff, not really knowing the difference at the time. But, when we talk about food, there's some people that are very strict, whether it's strict vegan or strict carnivores. I even have a friend that's a strict raw carnivore.
Hmm.
And, there's people of all different categories, high carb, high protein, low fat diets, so many different diets. And when we talk about these things, I don't want to tell anyone that my diet is right for you because we're all different.
Correct.
And I think it's important to establish that what works for me might not work for you.
Hmm.
But we can definitely agree on some core essentials, like there's something called real food, and there's things that people eat that really aren't food.
Right.
It sounds like you grew up eating real food. Have your preferences changed over the years, or do you still consume fish? And
Well, I'll tell you that first off, when I was a child, the first time I had like a store-bought cookie, I didn't like it. It tasted funny. It left an aftertaste in my mouth because we had grown up with, my mother always made homemade cookies. If you had dessert, it was homemade. And it was, if blueberries were in season, you were eating blueberry cake. That's what we did. But of course, as time went on and things changed and the roads got better, and everybody was subjected to TV dinners and all of that stuff that came with the 60s. And of course, my brother and I being children, we wanted that kind of stuff. So we got to that stuff, but my mother was very strict. She didn't allow a lot of that stuff in the house. And one of the problems that I had was I couldn't eat fish in a restaurant for a long time because it didn't taste right. Because there is a big difference when you take a fish and it's flipping and you cook it right off the boat. It has a flavor that you can't explain, to anyone who's always eaten fish in a restaurant. So, a long story short, of course, now I eat fish in a restaurant and my tastes have changed, but I do gravitate back to that. I always find myself wanting to go back to as pure as I can the food.
I wonder if that has anything to do with a lot of the fish that we consume also being farmed. And, when we say farmed, for those that don't know, what does that mean? Well, they're still raised in the ocean, a lot of them, but they'll have nets around them that kind of keep them in a certain area. And that becomes almost like their fish tank where their food is just kind of dumped in. They're not free to eat algae off rocks or eat other fish. It's whatever's in the net they get to eat, and it's probably going to be pellets, which
Hmm.
might have genetically modified grains or
Hmm.
who knows what in them, soy products, who knows. And what you're not getting is the super nutrient dense fish full of the omega-3s that they would have gotten from the algae and from the other little fish that ate the algae.
Hmm.
So I wonder if that has something to do with the taste difference.
Well, I think it does have a big difference because, I mean, nature has a certain balance to it. Nature is there. The fish is supposed to eat certain things, just like we're supposed to eat certain things. The fish aren't supposed to eat processed food. And in a sense, when you're farming them, you are giving them a processed food. So yeah, it does. It makes a huge difference eating things right fresh from nature. And there's a misnomer. People out there, we throw around this word natural all the time, but if you think about it, natural really means in its natural state. That means that I pick the apple off the tree and eat the apple. That's what natural means. But you see it splashed all over packages and everything, this is natural and that's natural. It's a bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, I've heard someone say plutonium is natural. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so they, people will stretch the word to, and put it on their packaging. Oh, it's natural. It must be good for you.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's just a word that's being used in creative marketing.
Hmm.
Now, what about, how does that tie in with naturopath? What's a
Well,
naturopath?
yeah, a naturopath, our philosophy is prevention over cure. So we approach everything of we should always focus on preventing ourselves from getting sick because naturopaths, we're doctors deal with the cure end of it. And I'd certainly much rather be in prevention mode than cure mode because in cure mode, you're sick. So what a naturopath believes is that we should follow the three pillars of health, the three basic pillars, which is diet, exercise, and sleep. Those are the three pillars. And then we teach the natural sciences, which could be aromatherapy, color therapy, light therapy, sound therapy, all of the natural things in the world that people don't necessarily pay attention to. You are affected by the light you are under, you are affected by the environment that you're in. And so it's important as much as possible to be out and to get into the natural environment.
What is color therapy? I never heard of that one before.
Well, color therapy, I guess a good way to put that would be different colors. Like if we have the color red and you target the color red, it's an energizing, where blue brings you more into that calm state. So if we were working with color therapy, we would work on the chakras and where the person is maybe having issues in their body and try to target that with different color and light, because we know that light is therapeutic. Sunlight gives us vitamin D. We evolved under natural sunlight, and sunlight comes out into the spectrum of greens and different colors. A really good example of color therapy would be whenever we go out into a forest or green area. And by the way, green is the biggest color in nature, is green. You get that calmness. And when you feel that calmness, that is the green color working on your body and your mind to bring you into that passive state.
It's, tying back to something way back that I remember from college. And it was a friend of mine. And what she did was, it wasn't, well, I didn't know it as color therapy, but she was like a color finder kind of thing for people. And what
Mm-hmm.
she would do is travel with fabrics of all different colors. And she would take it and she would like kind of lay it on her client as they were in the mirror, and she would watch their face, their
Mm-hmm.
expressions, and she would feed off that and figure out what their favorite colors were.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say they did settle on a green, for instance. Well, you kind of light up and I see you come alive when you see yourself in green. Now let's figure out which shade of green is best for you. And then, when she was done, okay, you liked red and you like green, and here are your specific shades of red and green. And she would give them a piece of the fabric so that they could take those with them when they were shopping for their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I am understanding it all the more now when you talk about color therapy.
Well, there was an interesting study done. They went into a jail, a prison, where they were prisoners, and they did a study. They painted the walls pink, and they found a whole different change in the energy of the prisoners. So we know that color affects us, and we're not really attuned to it. We go about our daily day, and we're not really attuned to it. But every once in a while, a color will catch you, and there's some kind of vibration that happens. We are affected by everything in the natural environment, and that means light and all the spectrum, the color that it gives off. So it's important to pay attention to your environment.
Very, very cool. Now, I want to go back to the other pillars too, because, well, you mentioned nutrition, exercise, and rest.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see getting in the way of people's health out of those three? Which one seems to be the biggest problem?
Oh, well, they say 70% of people are having sleep problems today. So I think that's a big problem, and that has to do with, but that ties back to exercise and diet, because we do know that if you're eating garbage all day, your body is not going to be working properly, and it may disrupt your sleep. We know that exercise is really good for allowing you to sleep. So we evolved moving as a human being, and we cannot live without good nutrition. So if you combine those two things, then you're going to improve your sleep. But to answer that more, it's very hard for people to stay to a healthy diet, exercise every day, and make sure they get adequate sleep. And what do they find? All kinds of people sign up at the beginning of the year to go to the gym, and then it just tanks after that. Very few people stay to that momentum.
Yeah, yeah. Then I think it also works the other way, meaning your sleep affects your nutrition
Exactly.
and your ability to exercise.
Mhm.
All three of them certainly work together, but I've noticed, especially lately, people complain more about not being able to sleep.
Mhm.
And, well, nutrition could be causing that. Lack of exercise could be causing that. Stress could be causing that. There's, so much that's different now than 50 years ago.
Well, we also, if you think about 50 years ago, we were all much more physical. Everybody had physical work that they did. You didn't have a gardener. You did your gardening. You did your snow shoveling. You did those kinds. You come home from work and that's what you did. And so the body, naturally gravitated to its rest at that point. But now, and we're all guilty of it. We're on the phones. We're sitting all the time. Yeah, yeah. You and I are, we're doing this over a computer. This didn't happen years ago. You and I would have physically had to connect somehow. And although technology is wonderful, it's like everything in life. Everything has its good and its bad. You just have to find the balance in the middle and not tip to either side.
Um, let's talk a little bit about yoga.
Okay.
And I am curious about it as far as, is it an exercise? Is it something for the mental state? What is yoga?
Well, yoga is a philosophy and it's a science. And there are many branches to yoga, and there are different, they have different philosophies which kind of are the same, but they branch off. Like karma has a different direction than Kriya yoga, yet they both go to the same place. So yoga is a philosophy. There's a philosophy behind it. The science behind it is that what you do with your body and your mind can bring you into a state of relaxation, bring you into that place of everything in balance. So the idea behind yoga is to bring everything, body, mind, and soul, into balance. Because when your body, if you think about it, we'll just take the body, if everything in your body is circulating perfectly, and if I stretched all your muscles and I've got you breathing properly, and everything is in alignment, because yoga constantly is working towards posture and alignment, everything's in balance, everything's healthy, everything's working. So that the science is to bring you to that place.
What would you say to someone that said, "Well, I'm not going to do yoga because I want to get stronger"?
Yoga will make you definitely stronger, because in yoga we do a lot of what is called weight bearing. And the weight bearing, of course, is, you're using the weight of your body. And I have people who come to my class. I have women and men that are in their 60s and 70s, and they are doing a plank. They're on the floor doing a plank. Now, we may not hold it for a long time, but they are doing that plank and they're building strength. And, I'll tell you another little story. I was teaching yoga, and there was a whole bunch of weightlifters, those big body weightlifters. And they were kind of joking around with me one day about yoga, And I said, well, why don't you come on in and take my class? So I had 5 of them in the back of my class. They could not bend over and touch their toes. At the end of the class, they were sweating. They said, that was a workout. So yoga is about building strength, balance, and flexibility. And we need all 3 of those things.
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in. You can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, Tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I like to tell people when it comes to exercise, there's different areas such as, well, like you said, strength and flexibility, detoxification through, sweating and opening up the pores. There's endurance. There's, at a certain level, there's fat burning. And I think all of these areas of exercise are important. What is yoga missing?
Well, I've added an element to yoga. I have a class which is called Proactive Aging. And what we do is we have a chunk in there of about 24 minutes, which is what they are telling us today is the ideal to get your aerobics in every day. It's like 24 minutes is the ideal time. And so what this class does is this class gives us, we do balance, strength, and flexibility, and then we do 24 minutes of what I call functional dance. So we get the aerobics in there. And I created this because I found that many of my yoga students didn't get aerobics. And I also am a certified spin teacher. I've been teaching spin for years, and my spin students didn't come to my yoga class. And I thought, well, we got to do something so you guys get all of it. And it's, and I created a DVD for it, and we sold it and everything. And it's been, a big hit. People like it because the 24 minutes is enough for most people. And if you make it creative and fun, they don't even know that they've got an aerobic workout, but they have.
Now, is this like Richard Simmons?
Well, yeah, sort of, I guess, yeah. It's really I geared it towards those 55 and older, because that age group is such an active age group, and they're such wonderful people. And they needed something different than the young 20 and 30-year-olds, because you have to teach to your audience, and you can't teach older people if you're 20, because you don't understand what's going on with their bodies. And so I created this so that we could kind of evolve as we're aging along, and they could age with me.
Isn't that true? Like I don't know about you, but when I was young, I had access to a lot of things that you didn't, because I didn't live on the little island. But I used to think I could eat whatever I wanted, and if I just exercised, I would turn it into good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore.
No. It
The
changes.
stuff that I ate actually causes pain now, and things hurt more, and I can feel a difference. I can tell when I'm inflamed because of what I ate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's getting in touch with your body. And it's so important because that is so true. You can eat something and it can just trigger something in you. And it's like for me, I mean, I really cherish my sleep. I don't want to eat anything that's not going to allow me to have my sleep, because my sleep's important to me.
I like my morning coffee, but I realize if I have, and I don't have that much, I have a little bit of an organic coffee with some coconut milk, and we make a vegan protein that I put a little bit of that in it to give it some flavor. If I have that after 10 a.m., I know it's going to interfere with my sleep, so I won't do that. Now, I usually have it around 5 a.m., so it's safe. It's not going to affect my sleep. But yeah, I don't want to consume chocolate that's going to caffeinate me, or some people, even carbohydrates might interfere with their sleep. Other people, a heavy meal before they sleep. So yeah, I want to eat to sleep well.
Exactly, because we do, sleep is a nutrient, and you need sleep just as much as you need vitamin B and vitamin C and all those other nutrients. It is a nutrient, and it is the only time that we are able to go in and reset the body. That's what it's for, rejuvenation of the body.
I think they did a science experiment, something to the effect of exchanging spinal fluid in monkeys. Now, I'm not one that's for animal testing and things like this. However, it's done, and it would be foolish not to benefit from what they had learned after the sacrifices that they went through. But they found out that by exchanging the spinal fluid, they could keep certain monkeys continuously awake and others continuously asleep, because when we're awake, it makes this chemistry that causes the need to sleep for it to rejuvenate.
Hmm.
And so they would just continue to exchange it, and one stayed asleep and one stayed awake, kind of thing. You're changing your chemistry when you're sleeping.
Hmm.
It's interesting. A lot of doctors will give medications to treat the mind because you have a chemical imbalance.
Hmm.
Well, if chemistry is really our nutrition and we can change it with the things that we eat, we can change it by sleeping it, we can change it by exercise, we can
Hmm.
change it by laughing or by being angry.
Hmm.
We can
Yep.
change our chemistry. Do you have a chemistry imbalance or do you have a nutritional imbalance? And if we just got our nutrition right through all of those different ways,
Hmm.
who would need those medicines?
Well, that's where a naturopath, that is our view. Our view is that, we live in a world where we want instant. And if I can't sleep, the doctor will write me a prescription, I got a pill, I'm instantly asleep. But it's a fake sense of sleep, and it's much more difficult to go through the arduous process of eating properly and exercising. And, it takes work to do that. And sadly, a lot of times human beings are lazy. They just want the quick fix. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we know, for example, that vitamin B12 has a connection to depression. We know that. We know that certain nutrients in the body affect the chemistry of our brain. And so, wouldn't it be better if we approached it from the standpoint of let's see what we can do and use medicine as the last resort instead of the first course of action? But we live in a world of big pharma and we live in a world of processed food, and it's a lot of money in those two, and a lot of lobbying. And, I say whether you like him or not, whether you support this administration or not, RFK's got the toughest job in the world because he's going up against the junk food people. He's got the toughest job because to change that's going to, taking a lot of work.
I'll be so bold to say I like what he's doing.
I will say that I mean, I'm behind him because I'm behind anyone who's trying to clean up, especially, what children are eating. These kids, if we can educate them and get them to eat healthier, it's such a wonderful thing. We're giving them a wonderful gift.
Now, if the McDonald's menu changes and reflects the menu in Europe, it doesn't mean I'm going to go there.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
that's true.
wouldn't that be something for the people? If the chemicals were taken out of the foods and they will be in literally a laboratory with lab coats on, adding things that aren't meant for consumption, trying to get that exact right color and taste
Yes.
because they want you to get addicted to their food. They want you to come back.
Exactly. That's how you make money. You make money by making people addicted to something that they have to come back to, they keep coming back to. And then we have this huge obesity problem as a result of it. And then big pharma makes money because people are getting sick. It's a circle. And that's why I say he's got a tough job on his hands because he's going up against two really big entities in this country. And,
It's a
it's
big machine.
just, yeah, it's really sad because the most important thing in your life is your health. It's the number one.
Yeah, behind me, I like pointing out the fact that is a photo, green screen. You're seeing an image of an aloe vera field.
Hmm.
And I'll always remind people aloe vera does not cure cancer. Chemotherapy doesn't cure cancer. There's no cure for cancer, although you can cure your own cancer. There's not an
Hmm.
outside in cure. There might be something that kills your cancer.
Yes.
And then if you didn't get rid of the cause, maybe it's going to come back. But the real cure is to change so many things in your life that you get rid of all the bad influences. You make your body work like it's supposed to. And in
Hmm.
making all those changes, you also somehow eliminated the cause, if there
Hmm.
was indeed one that was other
Hmm.
than your immune system not being strong enough. But the reason I think that's important is people will say, well, why can't you say then that aloe vera helps fight cancer? Well, because there's no proven science. Well, how come? Well, actually, there is, but why not? Well, because it's a food, and who's going to pay to prove that a food can help cure you of your illness
Well, you
or
can't
make you
regulate
well,
it.
help make you well? No one's going to pay for it. The big machine is going to pay for it. They're going to pay to have their drugs on the shelves, and they're going to pay to put them in front of doctors, and they're going to have their reps out there educating them.
Hmm.
And they do not want people like me interfering with that. And
That,
it's good reason to. It's for their own protection, because if I could
mhm.
say, this food or that food cures cancer, well, then other people are going to say it too, whether or not it's true.
Right.
And there is a certain protection that has to happen in that.
Hmm.
But the reality is food is medicine, and we're surrounded by it, and it can help
Exactly.
us.
Well,
And I
that
do believe that the changes in the administration are going to be for our better.
Right. Well, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, let food be thy medicine. I mean, that's really what it is all about, is being able to take care. And, I say to, you know, cancer, I have a very dear friend who she's lived a very pure, clean life, and she now has been diagnosed with lung cancer. But as I said to her, you will be so far ahead of anyone else who has gotten lung cancer because you've lived a healthy lifestyle. Continue that healthy lifestyle, you will come back stronger. So it's all a matter of when you take the drugs, the chemotherapy drugs, not only do they kill the cancer, but they kill other things in the body. And it's important to rebuild. And here's where medicine lets us down, traditional medicine. They don't say, okay, we're going to give you this drug and it's really going to beat the hell out of your body. But here's a diet and here's exercise and here's a program to
Mm.
keep you built up. They don't put that extra part in there. And that's the part that can make a huge difference in someone's life.
I personally think it's criminal. If I'm
Hmm.
going to put you on a drug, I should tell you, hopefully, this is going to help control your blood pressure.
Hmm.
But what we need to do is make these changes so you don't need this anymore. I
Right,
mean,
right.
that should be required.
Hmm. Yeah, because how many times do you hear, there's a drug they're advertising, and then they'll tell you all the side effects from it, and then 6 months later they're pulling that drug because it's too many side effects. I mean, it is really scary. To me, it's very scary to take drugs because I know that behind it, there is sometimes we do need them. Sometimes we need antibiotics to clear up something. And, I'm not, you need a surgeon. I'm not a surgeon. You need them for certain things. But we need to bring everything back to balance. And that's where we fall short is we go after it and we target it, and then we leave the person without some means to build themselves back up.
It was a great chiropractor, B.J. Palmer, said, if you took all the drugs and threw them in the ocean, it would be good for mankind.
Yeah.
Bad for the fish.
Yeah.
But, it's not that, okay, well, if we stopped taking medicines altogether, it would be 100% better. No, there's times when they're of benefit. But on the big picture, they're overprescribed, people are
Hmm.
over-medicated, and it is definitely killing people and quite possibly more than it's helping.
Yeah.
So we need to use medicine when it's needed
Hmm.
and use it for buying time as you're
Exactly.
making the changes to get well.
Exactly. And then support it with a healthy diet, exercise, even if it's getting up and a casual walk out in the sunshine, get your vitamin D. We know that vitamin D is very important, especially with cancer, because the vitamin D sometimes it can deplete because of cancer. So it's important to build that back up. And I like to remind people we evolved under natural sunlight. There's a reason for that. Get out there and get some fresh air and sunshine.
We have an advantage here in Florida,
Yep.
and yes, we can get our daily dose in probably 15 minutes.
Yes.
outside.
Yep.
For those up north, you might need a little more time, or you
Hmm.
might even need to supplement.
Yeah.
But if you can get it from real light, that's definitely
Hmm.
ideal.
Yep.
What does your typical client look like? Why do they come to you?
Well, more times than not, a client will come to me probably earlier in my practice. Now people are a lot older, and it might be a lot more of the older issues. But it used to always be weight. They wanted to, well, Dr. Lynn's got to know how to just hit me with that magic wand and boom, I'm going to be healthy and lose weight. And so the typical person would come to me with, stressed out and all this stuff going on. And I had to pull them back and get to what was really going on and then explain to them that this is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And you have to give yourself at least 120 days to really feel the difference in your body by continually doing this. And the ones who followed were amazing. They were just amazing people. I mean, they would come to me a month later, big smiles on their face, because they had lost weight without really going on any strict diet, because it wasn't a strict diet. It was just eat healthy and exercise. And that to me, when I saw the smile on their face and I saw the lightness, I knew that it was working. And that's really the typical thing. Today, it's more, I have a lot of people who will come to me with problems of arthritis. They have knee and hip joints and all of that kind of stuff. And so we work on that with the exercise because I am also a yoga therapist. So we do, the therapeutic work as well. And more, it's helping people because your diet changes and everything changes when you get past 65, things really start to change more than 55. People think it's 55, but 65 is when people start to see those changes.
I trust you're enjoying this podcast. So that you can enjoy it even more, throughout April of 2025, get $10 off your purchase of $100 or more at HaleyNutrition.com. The coupon code is $10. That's 10BUCKS. You can use this coupon with on sale and already discounted bundled items. All right, enjoy the rest of the show. I'm in my late 50s, and I definitely feel it. I can definitely
Yeah,
tell a difference. 40s, I didn't really notice much change, but
yeah.
I could imagine when I get to 60s, I'm just gonna feel it a little bit more. I
I got you
know I
well beat.
don't.
I got you beat. I got you beat. I don't mind. I'm 72. I turned 72 this
Wow.
year. And I tell people, people say, you're in good shape for a 72-year-old woman. What have I been doing for the last 50 years? I have been following this. You can't say, okay, I'm going to eat a healthy diet for 2 weeks and exercise and boom. It's a lifestyle. And the lifestyle begins with who do you really love? Do you love yourself first? And if you love yourself and you want to take care of yourself, then you have that health and you have so much more to give to other people that you love. So to me, it was important to stay healthy. And it's been my life. That's been my lifestyle. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't occasionally have a dessert, doesn't mean that I don't occasionally have a glass of wine, doesn't mean, those things. I mean, we have to enjoy life too. It's not about, and I used to tell that to my clients, it's not that you can't have a piece of cake at the birthday party. Enjoy it. Just eat the piece of cake and then go for a walk, or don't eat the whole cake, eat a piece of cake. That's the difference.
Yeah, recreational foods are just that. And if you have them now and then, and it's, an occasional recreation, if recreational foods are your main diet, we're going to have some problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have my 40th high school reunion coming up, and I remember the 30th. And there were some people that kept their health. They looked good. They looked strong. They were
Hmm.
thin. And then there were others that really didn't maintain, and some that couldn't even walk normal anymore.
Hmm.
And then there were also a bunch that weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Couldn't come to the party because they're in the ground.
Hmm.
I do believe we have a big say in which of those we're going to be.
We do. It's
Yeah.
lifestyle. It's lifestyle. You make the choice. I used to say to my clients, I can be your teacher, but I can't do it for you, and I can't make the choices for you. You have to make that choice. Do you love yourself? Do you care enough about yourself to take care of the most important thing, your health? And that is the focus. Because, we take our health for granted. And even you can get a small cold. And oh, poor me, I feel so bad. And you can't wait. And the day when that cold lifts and you're like, wow, I really appreciate that I'm healthy today. And then we go right back into the whole thing, taking it for granted.
Yeah. Usually the day the cold lifts from me is about 6 hours after having a few spoonful of garlic.
Yeah,
Then
that'll
it
do it.
just seems to melt away.
Hmm.
Um, how many books have you written?
Oh boy, I can't even keep them straight. I think I've written about close to 8 or 10, something like that.
And I did some checking. These are not pamphlets.
No, no, they're books. They're books. Yes,
Hundreds of pages.
yes. I'm known as the queen of content. But I'm
Was-
but I'm actually doing something right now that and I'll share this with your listeners. I had a dream when I was or a passion, something I wanted to do when I was 16 years old. I wanted to write a novel. And at that time, I was told, well, you can't be a starving artist or writer. You don't have any money. And I was a single mother at one time with 2 kids, and that's where my life went. So I finally have reached that point, and I am now living out a dream and writing this novel, which is very, very important to me. And I bring this up because I'm 72 years old, and I'm now doing something that I wanted to do when I was younger. I never let it go. I always said someday, 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 and I'll get there and I'll get there. You're never too old to follow a dream. So whatever it is out there, if you got a dream, just hang on to it. There will come a time when you can do it.
that might be the title of this podcast
Yeah, there'll be a
because it
time when you
really
can do
does.
it.
Well, you're never too old. It really kind of sums up a lot of the things we've been talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Are most of your clients local, or are you doing the telehealth? What do you do?
I do both. Yeah, I have people from Zoom. Of course, I spent 30 years of my life in Los Angeles, so I still have a lot of people back there that I still stay in touch with and work with. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is the best source the website, Dr. Lynn, and doctor being spelled out, DoctorLynn.com?
That's it. That's correct. And if you go there, my social media handles are there, the books are there, there's classes, and there's a place for consultation, and there's background about me. So everything you want to know is right there. I don't hide anything.
All right. If you could share one of your favorite success stories.
For me, my own personal success,
It could
or
be your own personal, it could be a client that you had that had no hope.
I would say if I said my personal, when I graduated my undergraduate, I graduated with a 3.8 as a single mother with 2 children. I was on welfare. I had student loans, work study. I was working part-time as a bartender. I mean, it was crazy, crazy, crazy. So to me, that was personally that's my personal success in life is when I was able to do that. Because I knew if I could do that, I could probably do most anything I set my mind to. So that was a really important thing. With a client, I've had clients come to me and been in such depressed states that, it just like their whole life was just tumbling into a big, big hole. And what I was able to do, I think of one particular one, is I convinced them to come to my yoga classes, which they did. And then they would see me. And we worked together. And I've always said to all my clients, this is not good business, but I always said to my clients, I'm not here to keep you forever. I'm here to teach you, and I'm here to cut the strings and give you your independence, because I don't, that goes against my integrity to be able to, keep someone, and it's not good business practice. But anyway, and to see that person, that particular person grow, and then to be able to just snip their little wings and watch them fly away, and then to have them circle around, maybe, I don't know, it was 5 years later, I couldn't even remember who they were. And to have them see me across the room and come running across the room and throw their arms around me and say, "You made all the difference in my life." And to me, at that point, I said, I am the wealthiest woman that ever existed on the earth. Because if you can do that for one person, think about it. If everybody could do that for one other person, we'd have a great world.
Yeah. And for me, it's the fuel, to why I do what I do. How joyous to hear, people's success.
Yes.
The thing you had shared about yourself, your personal success, if I recall, you have a book where the title is about prosperity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does it come out of that experience that you
Ye-
had with your?
Yes, it teaches you that, prosperity is not the wealth that we think. It's not having millions of dollars and big houses and fancy cars and stuff like that. Prosperity means to find wealth every day in your life. And wealth comes in very, very unique ways. There were times when I would meet someone and they would say something that would make me do something different, that led me somewhere else. And it led me on this successful path, relationships and things. So wealth is everywhere. We have wealth around us every day. And if you do strive to create wealth, wealth is not bad, material wealth. It's greed that destroys, not wealth. So strive to be wealthy in every way, and then put it out there, and it'll come back to you 100 times over.
Yeah, I think that's a bit scriptural too. There's something that says the love of money is the root of all evil, not
Mm-hmm.
prosperity in itself or money, but the love of it, which is kind of like the greed
It's
that you're
greed.
alluding to.
Mm-hmm.
You also remind me of something that I probably learned when I was 6 or 7 years old. And because sometimes people will say things that stick with you your whole life. And I'm going to
Yes.
ask you what sticks with you your whole life. That's someone in maybe a few short words. But going back, I was with my father. He took me on one of his sales calls, and the person he was with kind of pulled me aside and just kind of looked at me in the eyes and said, "Remember, persistence will get you whatever you want."
Mm-hmm.
And I never forgot that.
Mm-hmm.
And in times throughout my life when I was failing at something, persistence, persistence, persistence. Oh, wow. It worked again, yet
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm.
The other time, I think this was definitely later years, but 2 words came from this man. I saw a chiropractor speaking at one of the big chiropractic meetings, and it was, philosophy and inspiration and preparation for what you do. And at the time, I had my own little struggles in my head about who I was as a young chiropractor. And I didn't really comprehend if I was in a form of ministry or a healer, or I had too many thoughts. I got out of chiropractic school. I was also going to Bible college,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of doing some extra studies. So a little confusion there. And at the end of his talk, when everyone goes up to ask their questions, he's rapid firing answers because there's so many people that want to talk to the master. And when it came my turn, he looked at me and he only had a second. And I said, "Doc, I struggle with," he said, "Stop struggling." And then he went to the next one. Because what I said after that didn't matter.
Exactly.
The answer was stop struggling. And I've
Right.
taken that with me and applied it over and over to many areas of my life. What are some power words that someone has spoken into your life?
Well, I had a really good friend who was a professional baseball player, and he just keep getting up and swinging. Keep swinging, kid. Keep swinging and keep practicing. And one day you're going to hit it right out of the park. And I remember that because a professional baseball player does a lot of swing. They miss the ball more than they hit the ball, right? But you got to keep swinging. The minute you throw the bat down and you stop swinging, you're done. So, it's just like no matter what, I just keep getting up, no matter how many times they put me out, no matter how many times they put me on the bench, figuratively, I'd come back again and get back up to bat. And I think that, it's that tenacity that got me through life. And if I had to say one thing that got me where I've got, it is tenacity. It is the ability to just keep up and keep going and believe that you can do it. And no matter how low I got, and believe me, I've been broke, I've been fired, I've been thrown out of, I've been really in a low place in my life. I never sat on the ground. I pulled myself back up and said, nope, I'm going to do it. And, and most people would shake their head and say, she's crazy, but it's the tenacity, you can't give up.
We're all a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, Dr. Lynn, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we go, is there anything that I missed that I should have asked you that you wanted to share with our audience?
No, I think we did. I think we covered just about everything. The only thing I would say is I will emphasize again, just remember the most important thing in your life is your health. When it's gone, nothing matters. Doesn't matter how much money you've got. You cannot buy back your health when it's really gone. I use Steve Jobs as an example. He had all kinds of money. So every day, get up and cherish and really take care of your health.
Yeah, that's a good word. Dr. Lynn, thank you for joining me today. There's going to be links to your website and your social media channels on the description under the video on YouTube, under the podcast, however you're absorbing this content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.